Hey there, how's it going, everybody? In this video, I'm going to try to explain the solution to a problem that I see a lot and also a common question that I get on my videos. And the problem that I'm talking about can take a few different forms. So maybe you've installed Python, but when you type Python in the command line, it either says that it doesn't recognize the Python command, or maybe it gives you a different version than what you thought that you'd installed. Or maybe you're trying to use a feature that's only available in later versions of Python, like fstrings in Python 3.6, and it's just not working for you. So that likely means that you're not using the version of Python that you think that you're using. Or maybe you're trying to import something that you thought that you installed through pip, but it keeps giving you an import error and telling you that it can't find the module. So all of these problems are likely caused by your machine not using the correct Python interpreter. So in this video, we'll be learning how to find out which Python interpreter you're using and where it's located on your machine. We'll also see how to switch between different Python versions and environments, and also how to troubleshoot imports if they aren't working correctly. So in this video, we're going to be seeing how to do all of this on the Windows operating system, but I also have a video on how to do this on Mac and Linux as well. So if you're on one of those operating systems, then I'll have a link to that video in the description section below. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, maybe you've tried installing Python, but it still isn't working on your machine. So I've installed Python 2 and Python 3 on my Windows machine here, but when I open up my command line and run the Python command, then we can see that it says Python is not recognized as an internal or external command. Now, the reason that this isn't working is because our machine is only looking in certain places for commands. If it doesn't find a command in those locations, then it will give us this response that it's not recognized as an internal or external command. Now, we could just run Python by putting the exact location of the executable. So when I installed Python 2 and Python 3 on this machine, I installed them in two different locations. So let me bring those up. So Python 2 is installed here. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's in my C drive in a directory called Python 2.7. And for Python 3, it's a bit more of an obscure location. It's in users, Corey, app data, local, programs, Python 3.7. So let me go back to where I installed Python 2 in that Python 2.7 directory. So within this directory, we have a python.exe executable. So this is what runs Python. So if I use this entire path to this executable, then I should be able to run Python in our command line. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to grab part of this path up here from the bar and go back to our command line. And now I will paste that in. And within that directory, I will just run Python. So you could do python.exe or just Python. I'm just going to use the Python command and run that. And you can see that it runs Python 2.7.15. Okay, so now I'm going to exit out of that and clear the screen here. And now let's go to that Python 3 directory. So I'll pull that up. Now, like I said, this is in a bit more of an obscure location. So this is where it automatically installed when I downloaded Python online. Now, if you don't know where Python was installed on your machine, then I would suggest going back to the Python download page. And when you download Python, it allows you to install it in the default directory, which in my case was that long path that we just saw. But if you don't want to install it there, then you can use a custom location, and you have that option as well. So now let's go back to our file explorer here. So you can see in this directory, I have a python.exe as well. So just like with Python 2, if I use the full path to this Python 3 executable, then I can run that in my command line as well. So I'm going to copy this entire path here and pull up my command line and paste that in. Sorry, it's wrapping to another line here. And within that directory, I'm going to run the Python command. So by running the full path to that command, we can see that it's running Python 3.7. Okay, so now I will exit out of there. Okay, so that's good, but it's probably not why you're watching this video. So it would be nice to simply be able to use the Python command like I tried to at the beginning of the video and have it run the version of Python that we want. So like we saw before, if we run Python and run that, then it says Python is not recognized as a command. And again, the reason that this isn't working is because our machine is only looking in certain places for that Python command or executable. And if it doesn't find it in those locations, then it will give us this response that it's not recognized. Now, we can add directories to the locations that our machine will look, and we can do that by adding these directories to the path environment variable. So on Windows, we can get to the path environment variable by opening our start menu. So I'm going to do that down here at the bottom, and we can search for system, and we'll click here with within system within the control panel. So click on that, and within here click on advanced system settings, and then go to environment variables. So within here we have our user variables and our system variables. Now we can simply add to our path under our user variables. So I'm going to click on the path up here, and then I'm going to click on edit. And now we can add directories to that path environment variable. So to do that, we can just simply click new, and now we can add the path. So now we can just paste in our directory that contains our Python executable. So I'm going to paste in that Python 3 directory that I copied just a bit ago. So I'll paste that in. And I'm also going to add the directory that contains our Python 2 executable. So I'm going to click new here, then go back to our File Explorer and open up that location and copy that. Go back to our environment variables and paste that in. Now notice here that we're pasting in the directories, not the full path to the executable. So we left off the python.exe on the end of those, just the directories. Now the directories higher on the path have higher precedence. So rearrange these so that your preferred version of Python is higher in the path. So for example, if I have the Python 2 directory at the top, so if I click on this and click on move up, and then I'll put Python 3 here second, so I'll move that up one. So I have Python 2, then Python 3. Then now let's save all of this. So I'm going to click OK down here at the bottom, and OK down here, and OK here. And now let's restart our command line. So I'm going to quit out of what we had before and open that back up and maximize this again. Okay, so now let's see what happens when we type in Python this time. So if I type in Python and hit enter, then you can see that we actually get Python 2.7 here. And the reason for that is because we had Python 2 above the Python 3 directory in our path environment variable. Now, if I go back to those environment variables, so I'm going to reopen our system settings here, click on advanced system settings, go down here to environment variables at the bottom, and click up here on our path and go to edit. Now I'm going to click on Python 3 and move that above Python 2. And then to save this, I'm just going to click OK on all of these settings here, and then restart our terminal again. So restart our terminal, maximize that. And now if we type in Python, then we can see that now we're running Python 3.7. And that's simply because it finds that Python 3 executable in the path before the Python 2 executable. Now, Python now gives you the option when you download Python to automatically add the installation directory to the path automatically. So you might not have to do this manually, but it's still good to know how the path works and to be able to change this manually if you need to. Now, one more tip when it comes to the path is that you'll likely want to also add pip to the path as well. So pip is what allows you to install packages. So you want that command to work on the command line as well. Now it's not in the same directory as Python. It's in the same general location as the Python executable, but it's inside of a scripts directory. So let's add this really quick. So first of all, just to see this, if I pull up the Python 2 location here, then we can see that we have a scripts directory. And if I open that, then you can see that our pip executable is inside of that folder. And if I open up our Python 3 directory, then we have a scripts directory in here as well. So if I open that, then we can see that we have pip inside that scripts directory as well. So now let me go back here and let's add that to our path. So I am going to open up that scripts directory and copy that and go back to our system settings, advanced system settings, environment variables, click on our path and edit. And now we want to go to new and paste that scripts directory in. And then I'm going to move that up underneath our Python 3 directory. And I'm going to do the same thing for this Python 2 directory as well. So I'll click on new and paste that in. and I'll just manually type this in. So that is scripts inside that Python 2.7 directory, and I'm going to move that up underneath the Python 2.7 directory. And like I said, doing that is going to allow you to use the pip command with those Python versions. So just to show this, I haven't saved that yet. So if I go back here to the command line and exit that and run pip, then we can see that it says pip is not a recognized command, just like it did with Python before. But now we can close down our command line, and we can just click OK to save these environment variables. So I will save all of those, reopen our command line again, and now if we type pip, then we can see that that works, but it's looking for a pip command. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear the screen there. And again, like I said before, if you told Python to add everything to your path when you first installed it, then that should have already been taken care of in terms of adding the scripts directory and your Python directory to your path environment variable, but it's still good to know how to add it if you need to. Okay, so now let's look at a couple more tips. So let's say that your Python command is working, but you have no idea which Python executable you're using or where it's located. Now, this can definitely happen if you're using virtual environments or have a lot of different versions of Python installed. So let's say that you type in Python and it says that you're running Python 3.7. But that doesn't really do you much good if you have 10 different virtual environments that are all using Python 3.7. So how can we actually see exactly which Python we're running? So to find this out, we can use the sys module, and this is a built-in module. So within Python, we can say import sys, and like I said, that's a built-in module, so we don't need to install anything. And now we can simply look at sys.executable to see what executable we're currently using. So that is sys.executable. And if I run that, then we can see that we get this long path here to this Python executable. And we can see that that long path is what we added to our path environment variable before, that Python 3.7 directory. So if that value is what you expect it to be, then that's great. But if it's not, then using the value returned from sys.executable can help you debug what's going on if it's not the directory that you think it should be. So if you think it should be something else, then you'll have to check your path environment variable again and try to figure out why that executable is being seen before the executable that you think it should be. So there might need to be some rearrangement like we saw a second ago. So if you ever want to view your entire path from within the command line, then let me exit out of Python here and let's echo our entire path to see what we should be getting. So to do this on Windows, it is echo and then parentheses or percent signs, path, percent signs. So I will run that. Now there's going to be a lot more here than what we actually added in, but our additions are going to be here at the very end. So if we look here, then I can highlight this. Okay, so our additions start right here. And we can see that we have our Python 3 directory. And then after that, we have our Python 3 scripts directory. And then after that, we have our Python 2.7 directory. And then our Python 2.7 scripts directory. So if you ever run Python and you import sys and then run sys.executable and it gives you a location that you weren't expecting, then you can echo out your path and do a little debugging there to see why it's running that version of Python above another version that you may have expected. And you might need to do some rearranging there in order to get it set up how you'd like. So for example, if I wanted Python 2.7 to be the default Python, then I could come in here to Advanced System Settings, Environment Variables, edit our path, and then I could move Python 2.7 up to the top, which would make that the default Python. But I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to leave that where it was and cancel out of those and go back here to my command line. So now let me clear this out here. Okay, so I also get a lot of questions from people who tell me that they've pip installed a package, but when they try to import it, it doesn't work. So this can also be a path issue. So Python and pip are two separate commands and therefore could be located in two different places. And we've already seen that because Python was in our Python directory and the pip command was in that scripts directory. So if your path is messed up, then it's entirely possible that what you're installing with pip isn't installing that package for the version of Python that you think it's installing it for. So for example, let's say that I wanted to install Django. So to do that, I could just say pip install Django. And if I run that, then it says that the requirement is already satisfied. So we already had that installed, but it also gives us the location where it tried to install this. And it tried to install this in that Python 3.7 directory in this lib site packages directory. Now, another way to get the location of a package is to use pip show. So let me clear the screen here real quick. And now let's use pip show. So I'll say pip show Django. And if I run that, then it gives us a lot of information about the installed package, but also one of those is a location variable down here. And it says that the location is in this lib site packages directory of that Python 3.7 folder that we saw before. Okay, so that's important because if you're trying to import a package that you've installed and it says that it can't find the package, then make sure that the location of that package is actually in the lib site packages directory of the version of Python that you're using. So again, if I was to open Python here and import sys and then check sys.executable, then the location that it shows us here needs to be the same as the location where it's telling us that that package is installed. Now, since those are the same right now, then it means that I should be able to import Django with no problems. And if I import that, then we can see that I don't get any problems. But if that was telling me that it can't find a package called Django or that there's no module named Django, then I might want to check those locations to see if those are off. And if they are, then that's your problem. It means that your pip command is installing Django for Python in a different location than the Python that you're actually using. So if those locations didn't match, then that would be your problem, and you would need to fix your path in the ways that we talked about before by rearranging those. Okay, so now let me exit out of here and clear my screen. Now, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover in terms of figuring out how to set your Python path and see which executable you're using. But another thing I should mention is that we mainly covered the command line in this video. But sometimes I get questions from people who are using an editor like Sublime Text or something similar, and they tell me that their command line is using the correct version of Python, but that their editor isn't. So, for example, sometimes people will tell me that F strings aren't working for them, but they have Python 3.6 installed and it's working on their command line. Well, in that case, most likely that means that your editor just isn't using Python 3.6, even though you've installed it. And a good way to determine that would be to compare that sys.executable value that we saw before. So some editors might have a different way of determining which version of Python they're using instead of just looking at the path. So in Sublime Text, they use something called build systems. And I have a completely separate video on how to set up Sublime Text build systems. But understanding what we covered in this video here should help you better figure out which directories you'll need to add to those build systems in order to get those set up properly. And you may need to do something similar with other editors and IDEs as well, depending on what you're using. But really quick, let me show you a fast Sublime Text example just to show you what this looks like. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here since this isn't exactly a Sublime Text tutorial, but I'll just show you how I've set this up for me so that I can switch between Python 2 and Python 3. So I have a demo file here where I'm just printing out the sys.version and sys.executable. So if I run this right now, then we can see that this is running Python 3.7, and the executable is what we saw before. It is in that long directory in that Python 3.7 directory. Okay, so that might be what you want, but what if you wanted to use a different version of Python, or what if you wanted to use the environment from a virtual environment? So to do that, we would have to create a new build system. So if you come up here to Tools and then go to Build System, then at the bottom, you have the option to create a new build system. Now, if you were to create a new build system, then it would basically give you an empty JSON file, and you would have to fill in certain values. So let me show you what this looks like. So we can see here, I've created a build system called Python 2.7. Now, let me show you what mine looks like. So I've got that pulled up here. I'm going to close down that output for now. So this is what I've filled in for my Python 2.7 build system. Now, again, I'm not going to go into this fully since I have a completely different video on this, but you can see here that I'm passing in the full path to my Python 2.7 directory that we saw before, and also the Python executable there. And also on Windows, you can see that we need to escape our backslashes here within the string, but you can kind of see the concept. Now, if this was a Python 3 build system, then I would have the path to the Python 3 executable there. If this was a virtual environment, then I would have the executable for the virtual environment here. So whatever the path to whichever executable you want to use goes here. Okay, so that's the Python 2.7 build system. So let me open up my sample file here again, and I will go to Tools, Build System, and I'll actually select that Python 2.7 build system. So if I select that and rerun this, then we can see that now when we print out that sys.version and sys.executable, now it's printing out Python 2.7, and the executable is that Python 2.7 directory that we've seen throughout the video. Now, technically, since we're using Python 2, we should probably change these print statements so that the syntax matches Python 2 syntax, but that's okay as is for now. It's just a demo. Okay, and lastly, I also briefly mentioned virtual environments. Now, if you've never used a virtual environment, it's basically a way to have a separate Python environment per project. And that also includes separate Python executables and packages. Now, you might be wondering if you'd have to go through that whole process every time you activate and deactivate a virtual environment. But in the command line, you won't have to do that. So when you activate and deactivate a virtual environment, there is code included that automatically adds and removes those directories to the beginning of your path for you. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. But when you're using an editor like Sublime Text or anything else, then you'll just have to do an online search to see exactly how to use that environment within that editor. So in Sublime Text, it's the build systems that we saw here in this video, but I'm sure it's different in other editors. And in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a video on the newest official way to handle virtual environments using pipenv. So if you're interested in learning more about virtual environments, then be on the lookout for that video. Okay, so in this video, we went over one of the most common questions that I get among people who are just getting started out with Python. So it's common when people are first getting started out to occasionally get stuck in the same places. Now, when it comes to getting started out in computer science in general, that same concept applies. Now, the most common questions that I see there have to do with the fundamentals, such as data structures or algorithms. Now, a great resource for learning and practicing those common fundamentals would be our sponsor for this video, Brilliant.org. Brilliant is a problem-solving website that helps you understand underlying concepts by actively working through guided lessons. They have computer science courses ranging from algorithms and data structures to machine learning and neural networks. They even have a coding environment built into their website so that you can run code directly in the browser. And that's a great way to complement watching my tutorials because you can apply what you've learned in their active problem-solving environment, and that helps to solidify that knowledge. Their guided lessons will challenge you, but you also have the ability to get hints or even solutions if you need them. It's really tailored towards understanding that material. So their computer science material is fantastic, and I really like what they're doing. They also have plenty of courses depending on what you're most interested in. So they have courses in different fields of mathematics or astronomy, solar energy, computational biology, and all kinds of other great content. So to support my channel and learn more about Brilliant, you can go to brilliant.org/CMS to sign up for free. And also the first 200 people that go to that link will get 20% off the annual premium subscription. And you can find that link in the description section below. And again, that's brilliant.org/CMS. Okay, so I think that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully now you have a good idea for how you can manually set the Python path if you need to, and also how you can switch between different executables. But if you do have any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up, and also it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon, and there's a link to that page in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.